So much of our lives are lived online these days. It's like our data has become our second self. But here's the thing. Who's actually in control of that digital identity? That's the huge question we're digging into today. So let's get into it. So let's just start with this. In this digital age, who really owns your identity? It sounds like a simple question, but man, the answer is complex. Every single time you click, you share, you shop, you're leaving behind this digital footprint. But who owns that trail? Is it you? The companies? The government? This is the core problem we're going to unpack. Think about it this way. Your personal information has become this new kind of currency. It's what powers personalized ads. It drives massive business decisions, and it's fueling all sorts of innovation. But, and this is a big but, just like any valuable asset, it's also a huge vulnerability. It opens us up to risks like surveillance, manipulation, and these giant data breaches we keep hearing about.
So when we use this term data privacy, what are we actually talking about? Well, at its core, it's a fundamental right. It's your right to have control over how your information gets collected, used, and passed around. It's all about giving you power in this digital world.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big problem, the digital dilemma. Then we'll get into the legal rules of the game and the tech tools that make up your digital shield. After that, we'll go beyond the law to talk ethics, and finally, we'll look at the road ahead. All right, let's jump right into our first section, the digital dilemma. Because all this amazing progress, all the cool stuff in our digital lives, it's all come with a kind of hidden price tag. And that price, it's often our privacy. The threats we're facing today are so much bigger than someone just stealing your password. We're talking about constant surveillance from the apps on our phones. We're talking about algorithmic profiling that can literally decide which ads you see or even what job opportunities you get. And of course, there's the constant risk of these massive data breaches that can affect millions of people all at once. So how do we even begin to fight back against all that? Well, that brings us to Section 2, the rules of the game. This is where we look at the actual rule books that governments all over the world have been creating to try and protect our digital rights. Now, the big one you've probably heard of is Europe's GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. It really set a new standard for the entire world. What's so crucial about it is that it shifts the power back to you, the user. Companies need your explicit consent. No more of those sneaky, pre-checked boxes. And it gives you really powerful rights, like the right to see your data, to fix it, and even to demand that they delete it. And get this is a huge deal. Under GDPR, if a company has a data breach, they can't just hide it for weeks. They have just 72 hours to let the authorities know. It's an absolute game changer for forcing companies to be transparent and accountable. But Europe's approach isn't the only one out there. If you look at India's recent DPDP Act, for example, it's trying to strike a different kind of balance, a balance between user privacy, innovation, and state interests. It brings in new ideas like a data fiduciary, that's who's responsible for your data, and consent managers to help you handle your permissions. It just goes to show there's more than one way to tackle this global problem. Laws are absolutely essential, but let's be real, they're not enough by themselves. We also need technology to actually enforce these rights. And that brings us to Section 3, your digital shield. This is where we look at the tools that protect our privacy right from the ground up. Okay, let's start with a really important one, end-to-end encryption. The idea is actually super simple. Think of it like this. When you send a message, it gets put into a digital box and locked. That locked box travels across the internet, and nobody, not your internet provider, not the app company, not some hacker, can open it. Only the person you sent it to has the one-of-a-kind special key to unlock it. It's just fundamental for secure communication. Now, this is a really clever one. So companies want to analyze data from lots of users to make their services better. But how do they do that without peeking at your specific data? That's where differential privacy comes in. It basically adds a little bit of random statistical noise to the data. So a company can learn something like 70% of our users in this city use a certain feature without ever knowing if you were one of them. It's all about learning from the crowd, not the individual. And finally, there's this really powerful security idea called zero trust. You see, the old model of security was kind of like a castle with a moat. Once you were inside the walls, you were basically trusted. Zero trust completely flips that. It says, trust no one. It assumes a threat could be anywhere, inside or out. So every single time you try to access a file, even if you're already logged in,
it checks and verifies your identity again. It's a much, much tougher way to protect sensitive systems. So we have laws and we have technology. But there's a third layer here, and it's absolutely crucial. This brings us to Section 4, Beyond the Law. This is all about the ethical responsibility that organizations have to just do the right thing, not just what they're legally required to do. Being an ethical data steward means going the extra mile. It's not just about getting consent with a 50-page legal document nobody's going to read. It's getting informed consent, using clear, simple language. It means practicing data minimization, like if you don't absolutely need a piece of data, just don't collect it. And it means being open about how your algorithms make decisions to make sure they're not biased. At the end of the day, this isn't just about compliance. It's about building real trust with your users. And that trust is way more valuable than any data you could ever collect. Okay, let's zoom back out for our final section, the road ahead. Because even with all this progress, the fight for data privacy is, well, it's far from over. New challenges are popping up all the time. 3 challenges really stand out. First, our data flows across borders so easily, which creates this massive headache when you're trying to enforce laws. Second, the rise of AI is creating incredibly powerful tools for analysis, but also for surveillance. And maybe the most important one, there are still big gaps in digital literacy. If people don't understand the risks or know their rights, they can't make informed choices to protect themselves. And this all leads to a final, really crucial idea. Protecting our data isn't just about avoiding identity theft or getting less spam. As one of our sources puts it so well, safeguarding privacy becomes not just a regulatory obligation, but a moral imperative for sustaining democratic and inclusive societies. We're talking about protecting the very foundation of a free and fair society here. And so, we want to leave you with this final question to think about. We've looked at the laws, the tech, the ethics, but what is it really going to take from all of us, from individuals, from companies, from governments, to build a digital world where our privacy is respected by default? What does that future even look like? Thanks for tuning in.